Good morning. Good morning, Saturday morning. I know I'm not on the stream yet, so I'm letting you look at my beautifully produced banner. Ha ha, just kidding. We all love Canva. I won't say I love Canva, but I've gotten used to it over the years now. So, welcome to Now Conversations. This is just a nice, casual Saturday morning AM conversation. You'll see that I just got my Wawa delivery, but these are conversations with book authors. And I thought now, getting close to 8 years of publishing multiple books and interviewing potential clients, that I'd start to bring on book authors, not just from our publishing house, but also authors that haven't published with us, and ask those questions that maybe only a publisher knows. So, welcome to our show. I will come on stream if I remember how to do this. How is that? There I am. Good morning. All right. So, I'm so excited to be back with Now Conversations because we took a little break, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is going to be a nice, easy, quick show. We're going to only spend 30 minutes of your Saturday morning. Hopefully you've got your coffee. I'm on my third coffee, and not that they pay me endorsement. Maybe I need to go after Wawa. But my teenage daughter, actually my soon-to-be freshman college age teenage daughter, we leave for her, checking her into the dorms. I'm looking at the date in about 12, 13 days. She just brought me some Wawa. But I want to bring on GS Gerry. You're going to, he's so unique. You're going to love his humor, the way about him. And he's got some rock star titles. I want to tell you first, he's a father of 5. I'm a father of 2, which is more than a full-time overtime job. I don't know how he's a full-time or how he's a father of 5. I'm sure more than overtime as well. He's a Navy veteran, cybersecurity expert. And what I loved about his bio, I was reading again. I've known Gerry for a little bit of time. I've known him when he only had 1 book out. Now we're going to talk about the fact that he's got 2 books out. But what I loved about his bio, I'm going to bring him in and we're going to start there, is it says that he grew up in the world of books, working for his father's book bindery business when he was a child. Little did he know, it says that the literary universe had something more in store for his life. And I love that he has always been around books, and now he is who he is today. So let's bring him on the screen here. Let's see if that works. Yay, it worked. Good morning, Gerry. Thanks for joining Now Conversations.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always awesome to get on these podcasts and talk with new people. So, not that you're a new person, we've talked plenty of times, but to be on this podcast is always a great experience.
You're so cool. By the time the show's done, it was like, he's a cool guy. He's definitely, I used to say this in tech, you're on my cool list to people. You're definitely on my cool list.
I appreciate that.
No, you're cool. Tell me about the growing up part and your father and all of that. That's so interesting.
So my dad had a book bindery business, and so you have paperbacks, hardback books, right? The cover gets on the book somehow, and so there's a company called a book bindery business that does that, and so he had that business ever since I was little, and let me tell you, I hated it. I hated being there. I hated working there. It was not fun, and I was like 12 years old when I first started working there, and so you get the paper on like big sheets of paper, and you have to actually cut the paper down to the right size. Then you have to like put it together, and then you run it through this machine, and then it goes into another machine, right? So there's all these steps in order to just get the book made. And it's like the most boringest thing in the world. Like I hated it. I did not enjoy it. But they would be like, "Hey, Gerry, we need you to help us out, get this job done or help with this thing." I'm like, "No, I don't have time for this, Dad. I got to go play basketball, or I got to go play football. I got sports to play." And so he had that business for a long time. And then, I joined the Navy, and I had kids, and I moved away, and then he sold it. And then after all this happened, I ended up being an author. It's such a small world, because I never thought that I would work with books again. And then here I am writing another book. And it just kind of makes me reflect back on that time when I used to work with him and just put those books together, and some of the work ethic that I built as part of that, which I probably wouldn't have thought of and as a younger lad myself. But now looking back, I'm like, yeah, even though it wasn't the funnest job, like it definitely instilled a work ethic in me. So it was
I think
pretty
it's I think that is so cool, because some of what I've said and heard and regurgitated was this idea that when you're young, you find out what your passion is, right? like for instance, my part of my story is I think I was probably 15 or 16, and I had gotten my first summer job, and I went and bought this whole tapestry set of luggage, and I came home with it, and my mom and dad are like, why? And it was like, 5 pieces all matching and all that, and they're like, where are you going, what? And I had nowhere to go, I had nothing planned, but I knew I wanted to travel. And early in my career, as an IBM engineer, I was the one on all the puddle jumpers going off to Montana or whatever in West Coast. And then I loved to travel and all that. And it's like those things are kind of around you when you're young that that affect you clearly. So I love that was, that's part of your story. And, you just, that the books were in you and then they came out now. So I thank you for sharing that. So yeah, let's jump in, because first of all, when I met you, you had the book, your first book, right? Meth, Murder, and Amazon, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And I love that title. And then I love the way that you write and how you're a different voice than most of the books that I read. But I think people are interested, because I know I was. First of all, the title and the overall summary of your book, if you could share with that, but then dig into the Amazon part, because I remember asking you, hold it, how were you able to, put Amazon in your title and all that? Can you share that? Because it's such a great story.
Absolutely. So my first book, Meth, Murder, and Amazon, is a true nonfiction story. It's a real life story, and it's essentially the world's worst real estate transaction. And so me and my family, we go to sell our house in Colorado. And along the way, we actually get accused by real estate agents of murder and making meth. And so it's just this crazy 6-month roller coaster of all the highs and lows. And so sometimes I ask people like, hey, how many real estate agents does it take to sell a house? Most people are like, 1, right? I'm like, yeah, you would think, but that's not always the case. And so for us, it actually takes us 3 real estate agents to eventually sell the house. And so we ended up firing a bunch of them. This is our first house that we're selling, by the way. So this is our first experience ever selling a house. And so it was just a crazy series of events. I'm in Florida now, so we did obviously eventually sell our house. But it was just an insane experience, and just some of the things that we went through along the way. And so, after I got done with the actual sale of the house, I was going through my work process. I actually left Amazon because of all of this. And so as I'm going to write the book, I reach out to Amazon. I'm like, I wonder if I can use Amazon in the name. Right? I'm like thinking like, hey, is this a possibility? And so I reached out to their trademark department, and I was like, hey, if I use the name Amazon in my title, like, is that allowed, or is that going to get banned? And so the trademark department takes 2 weeks to get back to me, but they finally do say, yes, you can use our name, but you can't say anything derogatory or defamatory about us. I'm like, all right, perfect. I think I can blur that line. And so there's a whole part about Amazon. I did work at Amazon for about a year. And then as this process kind of unfolds of me trying to sell my house and move away. So yeah, it's an interesting story. I mean, I never thought I would be an author, but I won 6 awards for this story. So it was kind of it was great that happened, and it's kind of validation that, hey, I'm obviously doing something good because I'm winning awards for it. So pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, that's part of the reason that I really like talking to you after I've read, part of the book. I didn't read the whole thing, but read part of the book, and just what I read, how it was captivating and fun. And like I said, a different voice, but, kudos to you on the Amazon. So part of it, because I can imagine they get many requests, for
Yes.
that. And I'm really surprised, that they wouldn't shut it down. And then I'm also surprised that they got back to you within 2 weeks. Are you kidding me? I work with vendors that say, we'll get back to your email support ticket in, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. We have no chat. We have no humans. I mean, I don't want to go there, but I just did. So that's just really even crazy to me that they got back to you so soon and said, sure, thumbs up, make it positive. And I wonder what the SEO, if you got some good SEO, just because that title of name of Amazon, for goodness sakes, right?
I thought that would be the case, and looking back on it, I was like, maybe I should have picked a different title, because when I first released the book and I started making posts on Instagram, I would get blocked every day. Meth, Murder, and Amazon, blah, right? Post about the book, a book image, something funny, and they would post and be like, your post is banned. Like, this is it. Like, you can't say those words, right? Like, this is like blacklisted content because the keywords meth, murder, and Amazon. And so as I look back on the journey, I'm like, man, maybe I should have named it something different, because I felt like they saw these keywords, meth burner, Amazon, and they think like I'm talking about I got like a dead body in the mail right from Amazon, or I
Right.
got meth shipped to me, or like something crazy like that. And so I had to constantly reach out to Instagram and some of these other social media platforms. I'm like, hey guys, this is funny, this is satire. Just read the description, right? Like you guys obviously are monitoring it. And so no one would ever respond over there, but they finally, like after months and months of this going on, they finally just let my post, go through, so I don't have any issues getting read anymore. But when I first started, it was like pulling teeth. Anytime I posted anywhere, basically but LinkedIn, it would get banned.
Wow. Well, that's a great tip for an author right there. That's I wouldn't even have thought of that, but that's right. You got meth in there and you've got murder in there. And then, oh, by the way, you got Amazon. So that would make sense what you said, that, that would be picked up with, with the filters, or, the algorithms, whatever you call it. But let's stay on that for a minute, because let's talk about, book titles and how important that is. And, I'd like to ask you how you came up with your book titles. And I also want you to tell everyone about your second book, because it also has a very unique and fun book title. But let's stay on that, as talking about the importance of book titles and talking about what you knew. I have authors coming to me that say, this is what I believe someone's told me about what my book title how it should be. Tell us your perspective of that. But first, tell us book 2 that is recently released. What is that title, Gerry?
Yeah, so the new book is coming out in September, so about 60 days away, not even, and it's called Hysterical Hangouts with the Hind Legs. It's going to be a true to life reality TV show, but in a book, and so it kind of follows the story that everybody goes through. Hey, you fall in love, you got to meet the family next, right? And so part of that's being the parents, and sometimes when you meet the parents, your significant other, your girlfriend or your boyfriend, they have brothers or they have sisters, right? And so as you go to meet the family, as you get introduced to the parents, right, there's all these different series of events that happens. And sometimes the family will actually try to they'll try to actually like get under your skin. They'll actually try to get you away from their sister or their daughter, right? And so they'll actually put up these little like roadblocks, or really try to mess with you. And so I thought it would be a fun idea, right? Like, hey, if I've been married for 18 years, so I remember the first time that I met my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and I was like, well, what if we take this to a whole nother level? And so not only you have the meet the parents, you meet the family, but you really go over the top with it, right? And so you really play on like what's like the worst family stereotype. Hey, you meet the dad for the first time, dad's got a shotgun, right? He's being super intimidating. And so I'm like, well, we should amplify that. So not only does he have a shotgun, but now he has ammunition. He's like etched my initials into the shotgun shells. And then he's got like a machete on the side, right? So he's like being like really intimidating, like over the top. And so I thought that it would be like a fun way to do that, and basically say, hey, the main character, who's the boyfriend, is going to secretly record all these events that happens, and almost turns it into a reality show. And so I looked around hey, is there a reality show type book? And like I found a couple, but they're all like, hey, there's like an aspect of reality show. There is not a true reality show out there. So this is true. Reality show, every episode is labeled like some kind of episode. I even throw in like, hey, this is rated TV 14 or rated, TVMA for whatever reason, right? Like, hey, there's violence, there's blood, maybe there's some language in there and some things. And so I tried to really keep it true to like what you would expect from a reality show, but then it's obviously in the book. So just something unique and different to kind of set myself apart.
So how did you come up with the title, or did you instantly know the title? A lot of book authors will say, I already have my title. This is what I want the book to be. And some of them are like, I have no idea. We're in the middle of a book right now. I think we have a working title, but we've been working on it for several months and we still don't have the title. Tell me how you came up with your 2 titles.
So the first one, the first one kind of just came to me, the meth murder at Amazon. I told one of my friends after we finally sold the house. He's actually in the first book, and so I was telling him like, hey, yeah, all this stuff happened. Our real estate agent accused us of murder, making meth, and he starts laughing, like he thinks that's the funniest thing. I was like, dude, meth murder at Amazon, what a great title, right? Like it sounds like a bestseller already. And so like I joked about it right after it happened, but I had no idea or no inclination to be like, oh, that would be funny if I write a book, haha. And then like a few years later, then it actually happens. And so I already had the title. The second one, I still kind of had the title as well. Like I had talked with family, not necessarily about writing the book, but we would all have these get-togethers. My wife has 7 brothers and sisters. She's from a big family, and so we have like something like 23 grandkids now, like in the whole family that roll up to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and so like as we all get together, sometimes it's a pretty crazy event. There's a lot going on, and so one of the family members, I think it's my brother-in-law's girlfriend, was like, "Oh, someone's like, hey, your family's so funny, they're so crazy that you guys should do a reality show called Hysterical Hangouts with right in the name of the family." And I was like, oh,
Perfect.
well, what if I take the Hysterical Hangouts, but then it's use their actual name. I like to use made up fictitious names, pseudonyms, and
Yep.
so part of it was making it the hind legs, and so that's kind of where the hind legs come into play. And so I thought like, hey, if the characters were a Mandy hind leg, Tucker hind leg, right? Like they're all kind of play on like this thing. So whenever you say it out loud or you read it, like it sounds like something that it's not. And so that's kind of like some of what I do as an author. Like I'll try to come up with funny character names, or if you say it or you read it, it'll make you think of something else. And so that's kind of where that title came from.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing. So I'll tell you what our perspective is on book titles. So years ago, when we were setting up Now Publishing, I was taught that a book title shouldn't be more than 5 words. Keep it short.
Yeah.
Subtitle, should maybe don't have a subtitle, or a tagline is what it's called now a ton. Don't have it if it doesn't really add anything more. It's not required to have a subtitle. So we kind of, work with that. But I'll tell you what I care about with the title. One of the things I care about in a book title when we're working with clients is that the title doesn't tell too much about the book, that a prospective buyer could be biased by the title. So for instance, we're working on a book. It's an amazing book, amazing client in Saudi Arabia now, but she's American, working there. And she went through breast cancer by herself in the middle of the pandemic. So, and she's an amazing woman and it's an amazing story. And we're doing 2 books for her. And I'm just worried about putting something about breast cancer as part of the title at the front cover, because I don't want people to say, oh, I'm not really interested in breast cancer, or, oh, I've already read a
Yeah.
lot about that, or whatever. I want them to be intrigued enough with the title to pick up the book, look at the back cover, and read more, right? So there's this whole anatomy
Right.
of a book sale, many people know. And yes, I know that not every, people like ebooks and audiobooks, but same thing. The title needs to be impactful and intriguing. So, I love your titles because they're definitely intriguing. What? Meth, Murder, and Amazon. Who are the hind legs in that? But it's just
Right.
so important. Those elements of, like I said, the anatomy of a book sale are so important, and they really start with what's the title. And there are a few still brick and
Yeah.
mortar bookstores, but when we all go to them, what catches our eye? The color and what's the title. Yeah, so it's definitely
Yeah.
not anything you want to do, take a shortcut to. Or I tell book authors, not that's not the title until we both love it. Our whole team loves it. And I've had one other thing I'll add about titles. I've had clients that we say, you know what, let's just start this document that's our working title. I've had clients that we've started a text string between, myself, other leadership, and now the editor and the author. And we'll just, be, maybe driving and thinking about the manuscript and thinking about the book, the client, and say, what if it's this word exploring? I remember we have a book called Exploring the Practice. And we're like, we love that word exploring. So then we just build on that. And it's just a fun, creative process, but it's so important, not only for this rockstar title, but then of course, in our age of digital marketing, it's important that the title is available.com. It's important that the title is available as social
Yeah.
media handles, all of that. You really need that big picture and the long goal in mind for every part of a book publishing, writing process, which I know now, that very well, especially with
Yes.
what great work you do on marketing. Yeah, what's your input on that? And then we'll switch gears here for a minute.
Yeah, so I mean, from like a title perspective, I feel like my process is always going to be different, like, because I just do things a little bit differently. I'll write the whole first draft of my book on my phone. Probably that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but that's what I do. And so I'm on my phone a lot for work, and so that's kind of part of it. But as far as the title goes, I think you kind of hit on something, right? Like, don't give away too much detail. Like, if someone saw my title, Meth Murder on Amazon, are they going to know that this has anything to do with the real estate transaction? Probably not.
Right.
But it sounds interesting, and so that's kind of part of it, right? You want to get the readers interested. Oh, what's that? You want to keep them engaged because they have a short attention span, and so you're competing against millions of books. I think there's something like a million books comes out on Amazon, just on Amazon every year, and not everybody even uses Amazon, but Amazon's obviously the biggest player in the game, and so you have a lot to compete with, and so some of that's just like, hey, how are you going to differentiate yourself, or how are you really going to captivate the reader's attention? And part of that's the book title, some of that's the cover too. But then again, right, I have my cover, and again, you could see my cover, and probably I don't know that says anything.
We're going to give,
and so
yeah, no, we're definitely going to give the links for everyone that's watching, and then the rebroadcast to take a look. Your covers are rock stars, and we could talk about, not just the title, but the cover for a long time. But let's switch gears, because I hear from many people that will, come back and circle back with me and say, well, I just saw you on Now Conversations on a Saturday, and I'm interested in this. I've got a book in me. People have told me to write a book. I've started a book. Like you said, I've got my voice memos of some of my chapters in that. What advice would you tell people that are, I kind of think of it as, that you need to do this, but it's way down on your to-do daily list and monthly list, and maybe this year, maybe last year, maybe next year. What kind of advice would you give to those soon to be or should be first-time authors?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give them a bunch of advice. I mean, first off, right, you got to prioritize what's important to you, and so if you want a book, you're like, hey, start writing, right? Because it's not going to write itself. I know they have all these AI tools and things like that, but to be fair, it's never going to be truly your voice, truly your words. I'm just going to kind of use the AI to kind of build that. However, part of it's staying true to yourself, right? Like, write what you know. I feel like I'm a funny guy, so I'm going to write funny stuff. If I'm not a funny guy, right, and I'm mysterious, I write suspenseful things, right, then that's what you should write about, because you're confident in that, you're sure of that, right, and that's what you know. And so I think part of that is going to also resonate with the readers, right? If you're not funny and you try to write something funny, chances are it's not going to be funny. And so the readers are going to pick up on that too. And so I think I actually think that's a Mark Twain quote that says, write what you know. And so I think that's very true. Also, also got to have thick skin, right? I mean, if you're going to sell anything, write anything, be on podcasts, things like that in the public eye, right? You got to have thick skin, because people are going to not like your work. They're going to hate your face, right? They're going to hate all these things that you do for whatever reason. And so you just got to be like, hey, you got to do it really for you and what you like to do, what you like to write. And I think the readers will resonate with that too.
Question, I'm just going to ask this, since you were saying have a thick skin. Have you got what I call, the haters, the cyberbullies? Have you got negative people lashing out at you just for whatever reason they have, or have you been okay on that?
I've been kind of okay on that. If anything, I'll get like not a 5-star review, right? Like sometimes I get like a 4-star review. I've actually got one 1-star review, 2-star reviews, but they didn't leave a review at all. They just like rated it and then they went about their business. And so I was like, what? 1 star? How could this be? And so then I see they didn't leave a review, and then I reach out to Amazon. I'm like, hey, is this really a review? Did they even read the book? And Amazon's worthless at this point. Whenever you reach out to their support teams, they give you this standard boilerplate response. But at the end of the day, right, I was like, hey, it's fine, right? Not everybody's going to love your book, and that's kind of part of it too, right? Like, not everybody's going to like what you write, not everybody's going to like what you do, and that's okay. That's why we have these different genres and these different niches, and so part of it's really just finding your audience. Not everybody's going to love it, but there's going to be plenty of people that love what you do too, and so you just got to go out and find them.
Right. Okay. Well, I do want to I know we have some conversations going on here. I'm going to bring people on at 5 minutes to to the end time and let them ask questions. So just to let the people watching know that. But I love what you said about, don't write about things you don't know. And we say that all the time. Like you said, that's classic. And so the funny thing first is just that, I think I'm funny, but I'm the only one laughing at my jokes. So clearly I don't have that humorous way. And then that idea of, we had an author years back that she put all these big words in her manuscript. We knew it wasn't her voice, but I guess she thought it just made it sound better. And I remember an editor saying, honestly, some of these words I'm even looking up, and she's like, we're changing these. And so she had a conversation with her offline, and I mean, she didn't mean anything by it. But again, your own voice comes through. It's your own content. And that's, even though we definitely, as we assist with the content editing. And sometimes we'll say it's a high, medium, or low level of content editing we provide. We don't say ghostwriting, because I don't need to hear from the editor ghostwriter in a client's book. We need to get their content, right? We need to hear their story and know their voice. And that's not it's an easy thing to say, but it's not necessarily an easy thing to edit, right? It's not an easy thing to help. And so you've got to have a lot of skill, writing and editorial, to be a great content editor. So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. All right. Let me see if we can do this. Thanks for letting me kind of try this. Let me see if I can show. Jeff, I'm going to bring you on because I think you have a question, or you can at least talk. There you are. Jeff, are you able to talk or not? Be nice to have tech support here. Okay. Let me ask. Maybe not, because I don't know how to do this. I'm going to ask him, what is your question to Gerry? Yeah. And maybe Gerry spelled with the G. Let's see.
Gerry with the G.
And actually, Gerry, while we're seeing what that is, why don't you tell people how to order your books, how to read about them, how to be involved with everything GS Gerry for your book. And then are you on pre-sale with Hysterical Hangouts with the Hind Legs?
I am. Yep.
Yes.
So it's on order. So the new book, Hysterical Hangouts with the Hind Legs, is available on Amazon for pre-order. It's also on Barnes & Noble for pre-order, and some other platforms. Methburner and Amazon's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, let's see, where else? Walmart, pretty much anywhere online. Methburner and Amazon is. I also have a website, gsgerry.com. On there, there's a blog, but I also have some free recipes I like to cook myself. And so we like to make a lot of things here at home. So there's some good recipes up there. It's under the Meth Lab Creations tab, right? So if you see Meth Lab Creations, don't think it's actually meth. It's a meth-free site. But I figured, they said all these things about me. I might as well kind of just take ownership of it and just make fun little plays on it. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Well, so I put GS Gerry in the chat, so you can go there. I may not be able to add Jeff in, but he has a little note there that he's got a book that's already been out, and it looks like he's doing second edition. So congratulations on second edition. Okay, Jeff, and so I think he wanted to just say hello. So thank you for that, and I'm glad that you're on the stream, and I don't know how to get rid of you. How funny is that, right? I don't need to. Oh, hang on. Yes, I'm so good at StreamYard, not. But all right, so we're at the end of the show. What I want you to do is, and I'm putting you on the spot, but I know you can roll with it, so that's why you're on here. I want you to give an action. Think about, what would you give, and you're a dad of 5, so I'm sure this is in your wheelhouse. Give an actionable item to everyone on this show. We have from today until next Saturday at 9:30 for the Next Now conversations and a new book author guest. Just give an action to help someone move closer to that finish line of publishing or finishing the first draft of writing. What would you give them as an actionable step of deliverance?
I would say actual step of deliverance. I mean, just do it, right? I mean, obviously there's a whole process to get through, right? Like, you have to send it to an editor, you have to get it edited, then you have to kind of refresh, revise, rinse, repeat until you get to the end, right? But keep your eye on the prize, set a goal for yourself, right? If the goal is, hey, I want this book out by January 1st, well, you should certainly be kind of close to the end, because there's a whole process. It takes a while to get the book edited, and you got to make your edits. then you might notice a typo or someone might have missed something. So then you got to go back and do it all over again. And so it's quite a consuming process, a time consuming process, I would say, for just from the time you write the book until you publish it. Every process is going to be a little bit different. But I would say, don't hesitate. Don't kind of procrastinate, right? It's not going to write itself. And so just take every day to just do a little bit more. Me myself, I try to write, an hour to 2 hours every few days a week if I can, right? So just make actionable items like that. Hey, you might not be able to write every day, but try to say, hey, 3 days a week, I'm gonna write something on the page, whether that's a chapter, a whole book, right? Whatever kind of moves you. So I try to get chapters done per week. That's kind of my process, but everybody can be different. And so, just try to get something, pen to paper.
All right. Sorry, I'm trying to end on time, but great advice. And definitely don't put off what you need to do till tomorrow. We all, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, but you're right. Rinse and repeat.
Right.
Start the process, set up a new discipline, set up a new behavior that is something that you want to accomplish. And we say, you will prioritize what is priority. So 1,000% wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this Saturday morning. Thank you, GS Gerry. Go to gsgerry.com and keep up the funny, hysterical, unique writing. You're awesome. You're on the cool list, man.
I very much appreciate it. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too, Gerry.